Can you hear? Yeah. Okay. So I think we're gonna have to swivel the mics over. Starting on that side, so that staff can have a.
Testing, testing. This was not working. Can you hear me? Hello? Testing? You hearing me? Can you hear it? It's working? Oh, okay.
Can we share this one? We let that one works. You and I share this. Okay. That's yours. Does this work? Good.
Ready? Okay, I call to order the meeting of the Santa Fe County Planning Commission, Thursday, February 20th, 2020 at 4 p.m. Roll call?
Charlie Gonzalez.
Here.
Frank Katz.
Here.
J.J. Gonzalez.
Here.
Leroy Lopez.
Here.
Susan Martin. Here. Stephen Prince.
Here.
Fred Resnick.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have four.
Thank you. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, on this meeting here, we're going to have a election of the chair and vice chair. Frank?
I would nominate Charlie Gonzalez as chair.
Any other nominations?
I move that nominations be closed. Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No.
Mr. Chair, I nominate Frank Katz for vice chair.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Frank has it. Thank you all.
So I just remind everybody when you speak, you have to speak right into the mic. You have to turn it on just so you see the red light. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all again. Let's get going here. Amendments. Vicki, any amendments?
Mr. Chair, there are no amendments to the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as submitted.
second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, tabled or withdrawn items?
Mr. Yeah,
It's up on the same, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, approval of the minutes. Any comments on the minutes of December 19th, 2019?
Move to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
inasmuch as I have an excused absence for the December meeting, I will abstain.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see, new business. Case number 19-5240, Allen Rappaport variance. John Lobato.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commission members. Alan Rappaport, applicant, requests a variance of Chapter 7, Section 7.3.3, Table 7-A setbacks of the Sustainable Land Development Code to allow an accessory structure to be located 10 feet from the rear property boundary. The site is within the residential fringe zoning district where the rear setback is 25 feet from the property boundary. The site is located at 84 Camino Amor within Township 18 North, Range 10 East, Section 20, Commission District 1, SDA 2. Summary. On November 6, 2019, the applicant submitted an application for a variance to allow a 600 square foot accessory structure to be 10 feet from the rear property boundary. The site is within the residential fringe zoning district where the rear setback requirement is 25 feet from the property boundary. Currently, there is an existing 2,889 square foot residence on the property. The current residence is approximately 60 feet from the rear property boundary, and proposed garage is approximately 100 feet from the residence. The applicant states, "We purchased the house knowing we would be required to build a garage for our vehicle and significant storage needs, as our new home had not been occupied year-round and contained very little in the way of storage area." The applicant states, after they resurveyed the property, they found the only logical spot was a flat area near the home. They met with the Los Caminitos HOA Architectural Control Committee and sought a variance from the committee, and the variance was granted. The applicant further states, "We next learned that our proposed siding of the garage would require variance from Santa Fe County and arranged to meet with the appropriate committee. Furthermore, we did not want our vehicles outdoors for the winter and prefer not to continue storage rental and began to earnestly explore another building site. The alternative site posed difficulties with multiple standing trees, water lanes, and proposed height variances due to topography of the land. Los Caminitos HOA Architectural Committee has a restrictive 50-foot requirement and has reviewed the applicant's site plan and preliminary design for the accessory structure. The committee had no issues and granted the applicant a 10-foot setback." On December 12, 2019, this application was presented to the hearing officer for consideration. The hearing officer recommended approval of the application as memorialized in the findings of fact and conclusions law written order, exhibit number 13. The hearing officer found that the evidence presented met the variance request criteria set out in Chapter 4, Section 4974. Furthermore, the hearing officer found that the practical difficulties set out in the application and testified to by the applicant involved removal of trees, substantial earth movement, and relocation of water and electrical lines in order to construct the garage on the most logical alternative site identified by the applicant and staff. These facts establish that failure to approve a variance would result in extraordinary and exceptional practical difficulties as required by variance criterion number 2. The applicant has addressed the variance criteria and staff has responded as contained in the memo. Recommendation. The hearing officer found that the practical difficulties set out in the application and testified to by the applicant involved removal of trees, substantial earth movement, and relocation of water and electrical lines. This would inhibit construction of the garage on the most logical site identified by the applicant and staff. These facts establish that extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions of the property exist in accordance with the variance criteria. Therefore, the hearing officer recommended the application be approved with staff conditions. Staff recommendation. The setback does not meet the requirements of Chapter 7, Section 7.3.3, Table 7-A, setbacks of the Sustainable Land Development Code. However, there are terrain constraints, drainages, and disturbance of significant trees which could hinder any type of development elsewhere on the property, and the alternative site is a distance from the home. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the variance request as proposed. If the decision of the Santa Fe County Planning Commission is to approve the variance, staff recommends the following conditions be imposed and recommended by the hearing officer. 1, the applicant should not build any structure within the required setback. 2, the applicant shall comply with all fire prevention requirements, which is A, an emergency vehicle turnaround shall be required for all structures that lie farther than 150 feet from the access road. The emergency vehicle turnaround shall meet the requirements of the Santa Fe County Fire Code. B, the owner shall comply with and maintain the requirements of the Santa Fe County Vegetation Management Plan regarding the proposed structure. And 3, the height of the structure shall not exceed 18 feet. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, John. Yes, does the commission have any questions of staff? Frank?
Yeah, I assume that the place where the garage is going is where the car is parked on that graphic, more or less? Yeah, more or less.
Mr. Chair, hearing officer Katz, that is correct.
And who owns the property south, below that?
Mr. Chair, hearing officer Katz, that is owned by a private individual, a property owner. I believe the applicant can further address that.
Okay. Is there any buildings at all close on that property?
Mr. Chair, hearing officer, committee member Katz, there is no other buildings that are very close to
One
that.
other question I have is the way that that property lies, the house in there, is it somewhat in a bowl with it going up on both sides?
Mr. Chair, committee member Katz, it is an older model home, and this house came in prior to our regulations of our terrain management, and therefore it was a disturbance of some of the slopes on that. But
That
it's
wasn't my
not in a
concern.
bowl.
My concern was visibility. Is it visible from any other house in the area?
Mr. Chair, committee member Katz, it is not really visible from any surrounding locations.
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions of staff?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at exhibit number 9, and we can sort of see it there on the display, but where exactly does this water and electric line run? Because I don't see it on the exhibit.
Mr. Chair, committee member Kratz, if you see where the proposed garage is on Exhibit 9, that was the alternative site. The
Right.
site that's most logical, what the applicant is stating, is along the turnaround location.
Yeah, I understand that. But where is the existing water and electric lines that were mapped out? Would you like me to?
Commissioner Member
I will.
Kratz, that is right in front of that proposed garage that you're looking at. That's where the lines run through.
So let's say the.
Could you identify yourself for the record?
Comes to the meter here.
Identify yourself.
Oh, yeah.
We're
Francis
gonna
Stanley.
swear you in too.
Yeah, okay, good.
Who all's gonna speak? Are you all going to speak?
No, I'm not.
Probably just
Well,
Alan and
I'll
I.
have both of you sworn in. Please raise your right hand. You swear affirm the testimony about to give the full truth. Before you speak, please state your name for the record.
Yeah, Francis Stanley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I designed this project, and I've designed this project, and I've gone through these different issues.
You have
And
to
so,
get right into the line.
yeah, and we brought a line locator on site to locate this line. And so where the line runs, the high voltage runs all the way down here to the transformer, and then it's transformed down to 220 power, and then it comes in here, around here, and then there's the house. Yeah, there's a bridge here, so then it comes all the way over to the mechanical here. So it's in the driveway here.
Okay, thank you.
And is the water line the same way, same place?
Yes. We haven't located it, but it's probably similar. The well is right over here, and so it comes in, and beyond this point, I don't know where it goes, but it would pass by this location and this location.
So, Mr. Stanley,
Yes.
this is my confusion. According to the staff report, it was stated that if the alternative was to be pursued, that you would have to do a considerable cut in order to, well, flatten out the area, essentially, and that you would run into the water and the gas line, the water and the electric line.
Yes.
But I'm looking here at Exhibit 9, and I see proposed contours 42, 43 on Exhibit 9. Those aren't cuts, they seem to be fills.
I'm sorry,
Yeah, we have to get to.
yeah, right, I can look at it here.
Yeah.
Is that's Exhibit 9, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
So where exactly is this area that would be cut that
Well,
would interfere with the lines?
So the building is 33 feet long,
Yeah.
okay? In the same orientation as the driveway going up. So essentially, that has to be level.
Right.
And we've got, are these 1 foot increments? Yeah, I think they are. So there's 4 vertical feet that has to be modified in this. We'd have to dig down on top being toward the house, and on the bottom, we'd have to add fill. There's 4 feet of slope in roughly 35 feet.
So it's over here by this proposed concrete deck and steps? Is that where you're saying the problem is?
I'm sorry, I'm Alan Rappaport, the owner. May I speak?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Try speaking into the mic. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I think you're looking at the proposed site that failed, that we tried to pursue to avoid the variance. And the power and water both go up this line. This is where that alternate proposed site was to avoid
Right.
the variance. And this driveway is at a slope
Right.
and would have had to been lowered 4 feet to enable us to drive into the garage at that site, which would put us on top of the power and water lines.
I know that's what you said,
Yes.
but I'm looking at your plans here.
Yeah.
I don't see cuts. I see fills. So where is this cut that's 4 feet deep?
So I think what we were imagining here after talking to my excavator is that we could cut all, I mean, I could cut the whole thing out, but I thought that we could fill on one side and we could cut on the other to try to level.
Of course.
That's the whole idea.
Try to balance out.
Right.
But being that it's a buried electrical line and a buried water line, we have to maintain a depth on them.
Absolutely.
And to move them, we would have to cut them and excavate deeper.
That's what I'm asking. Where is the excavation you're talking about? Not the fill, because I see on the plans here where the fill is, but where is this excavation that's cutting down 4 feet to run into these lines?
This is the view of the area. This is where the failed proposed site
Yep,
was. This driveway is at an angle, like, it goes up like this.
right.
All right, we have to lower this to make a flat entrance to the garage. So we couldn't, if we had the garage there, we have to lower this driveway on top of the power and water lines in order to drive in to the garage.
Okay, well,
To make any
this
sense?
is where I don't understand.
Okay,
I understand exactly what you're saying about why we would have to do this.
yeah,
But I've got this document in front of me here.
yeah.
This document doesn't show that. This document shows instead proposed contours rising, not lowering.
For the
And-
garage.
Yes, for
Right,
this
but
other
it's not
position.
show- But in order to make that site work, the driveway would have to be lowered.
But that's not what's portrayed here.
Well, what essentially happened was we determined that instead of further investigation on this site, we'd move to the site that the variance.
Yeah.
And so that's where we've been putting our energy and focus.
Well, I understand that. And you know, and I'm a builder too, and I understand
Sure.
what's involved with all of this. But one of the arguments made to the county staff that was a limitation of the secondary site
Right.
was that you would have to do a cut in order to level out the property so that you could basically level the property and to have the structure in this other place. And I understand that, yeah, if you had to do a cut, yeah, you could very well run into these lines because they have to have a certain amount of cover, etc. But when I look at the documents supplied to us here, I don't see a cut anywhere. So that's why I'm confused.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Member Krenz, if you really look at this, it's about a 4-foot drop. Now, he can meet that grade. He can meet that grade and keep it level on that front side where you have the driveway. On the back side, he's gonna have 5 feet of fill, which is part of the height component in any elevation. So when you add that plus 12 feet or 14 feet, let's put 14 feet with a parapet, you're gonna have him exceeding height. So he's gonna need a variance of height standards because a structure can't exceed 18 feet on 15% or greater. And this is 15% or greater because you can see on exhibit number 8, the hashed area is 30%, which he would need another variance to disturb for a building structure. So then he would need two variances. You're looking at one for 30% slope disturbance, and then you're gonna look at a height variance that he is probably gonna need.
Okay, well, that
Plus,
makes-
he's gonna disturb significant trees.
Yes, I understand that. And that all makes sense to me. But what I was concerned about was that the really sincere limiting factor had to do with running into these buried lines. And I don't see where, according to the document we have, you're gonna run into buried lines because it's fill you're talking about, not cut.
Well, it's actually cut
It is.
and filled.
Well, where's the cut? I keep asking this, show me on the plan here, where's the
I can't
cut?
show you something that hasn't been
It's
drawn.
done. It hasn't been done. That was like the last straw of all the difficulties we were confronting when we realized that the driveway had to be lowered 4 feet and that we had water and power lines estimated 3 feet.
And there was another issue, and that is that there already is an aggressive series of steps that you have to, as it stands now, without lowering that uphill end of the project, both my clients are in there, he's in his 70s.
So besides having to lower the driveway 3 to 4 feet, we would have had to add another set of stairs, which is going up to the house.
I have a question for John. John, have staff been out to the site to look at it?
Mr. Chair, staff has been out to the site, and that's why we based our approval on a site visit.
Okay, thank you. I see what he's talking about there. Your contours are showing more fill. And what he's talking about. But if you guys have looked at it in the field, that's fine with me.
I mean, I'm only making my judgment on the documents that have been supplied to us.
And that's all I can do.
And on the basis of the documents supplied to us, I don't see how you're gonna be running into this difficulty. Other difficulties, absolutely, no argument there, but I'm just asking questions about, running into, cutting material away that you would run into these lines. That's my question.
This is my drawing, isn't it? This is where I reestablished.
Well, yes, but this is the topo done by the last survey
Okay,
people that.
that's right. I did a topo, and
Yeah.
then I was out of town.
Right.
And you addressed
Yeah,
placing the structure there.
right.
And then it was
Right.
also, then the surveyor also did another placement of the structure over here.
Right.
Okay, anything else?
No.
But I understand your point. It's not demonstrated there, but we didn't go that far to demonstrate it there once we found out the multitude of difficulties with that site. I know we spent months and months pursuing that site with every intention of putting it there until we found out that it was kind of the last straw. After all the other difficulties with earth moving, cutting all the trees, then it was, now to get this level to the garage, we have to lower our driveway. And then when the locator came out and we realized that step and all the additional steps, that was kind of the end of that process. It was just in public.
Yeah, maybe John, in the future, we can get some more detailed plans and maybe showing some cross sections or something like that would help us a lot for some of these.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
is it my understanding that this has been shared with the HOA and the adjoining neighbor?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And their response?
The HOA approved the alternative site 10 feet from the boundary quite some time ago, so they had no problem with it. All the neighbors were informed, and the neighbor to the south, who actually owns the property, has a letter on file giving his total approval. both himself and his wife, the owners of the adjoining property.
And that's the property closest to the proposed structure?
Oh, yes, it's right on the line, right. They'll be 10 feet from the structure. They've written a letter that they have no problem with the
And
building.
bordering the rear of the property is national forest?
No, it's the HOA wilderness property
Okay.
and other HOA
Common
owners.
use?
Yeah, yes, it's called the wilderness area.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Raznik, that is on your Exhibit 6 on your packet.
Mr. Chair,
JJ,
I was gonna ask the Fire Marshal Blay if he has been out to the property and you have a letter of approval for the turnaround. I was kind of confused where your turnaround was going to be.
That's what I like to know also.
You haven't gotten approval on that yet, a
Well,
location for that turnaround?
No, we have not at this point determined where the turnaround is going to be located. If they decide to install the garage on the existing turnaround.
So that is you're reviewing that application.
Well, we are hoping that then they would have to submit again and determine where the turnaround would be located prior to getting a permit for the installation of their garage.
Okay, so if we approve this variance, they still have to go to your office to get the approval for the hammerhead turnaround or to comply with fire marshal requirements?
Mr. Chair, Planning Commissioner Gonzalez, that is correct.
Okay, so that would be a condition if we vote to approve with other staff conditions?
we could put it as a condition, but they're saying they're going to handle it with the building permits, or either way?
Yeah, they have to.
All right.
Mr. Chair, if the variance is granted, they would have to come in and submit an application for a development permit, and at that time, it would get sent to the fire marshal for review. So
Okay.
they would have to comply with any fire marshal comments at that time.
Okay, thank you. John, I do have a question myself. I'm used to seeing the whole survey plat with a whole lot. I don't like to see little portions or partials. To me, that's like forced reviewing of a certain portion. So I'm just curious on the whole survey plat, was there any kind of notes that we should be aware of? Or you can't do this or whatever, you know how like subdivision plats usually have notes on them?
Mr. Chair, this is a pre-approved subdivision done in 60 some. There was no notes on that subdivision plot with restrictions other than their setback requirements.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of staff? Okay, I kind of jumped the gun a little bit. Let's, are you ready to make your presentation, the applicant?
Yes, I'm not sure what a presentation is.
Do you have a presentation to make, or do you think you already made it already?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Okay, I'm going to open this up for a public hearing. Anybody here to speak in favor or against this project? No? Okay, please state your name for the record and.
Yes. This garage is very necessary. I'm sorry. This garage is very necessary for us. We have no garage right now, and it's been a hardship for us. And the place where we've laid it out that makes sense is really the only place on the property that does make sense. The one that we were considering before, as my husband was saying and Mr. Stanley was saying, is just it's impossible for us to negotiate building a garage on the alternative area because of the problems with deforesting it and building more stairs and leveling the property and raising the driveway. It just would be ridiculous. So I'm just here to vote my favor
Okay,
of that.
thank you. All right, being that said, I'm gonna close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, may I make a motion?
Frank, please.
I would move to find that the variance is well taken and that we approve the variance with the conditions set forth by staff.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, passes. Thank you for coming before us.
Thank you.
No, I don't know. It used to be the system. And it's a new system. This system. She's now. It has new ones and she transferred county. Even though he lives in the driveway, even though.
Can you get us to the two joint ones?
I need a county receiver of the voters on this, I'm just gonna look at everybody from the public heads. Yeah, I do wonder. I know the county has received communication about this project from residents, but I don't know if anybody is here that reference to. Yeah.
Oh,
Access, you put in a black, where, do you know where it is? Yes, go to T drive.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Down to the end. Minimum GC output.
This is a nice.
Go to the Y drive. That's what it was. If you go to the Y drive. And go under those and close. My phone.
Maybe he'll stay.
Yeah. Can they get Can't we invite them in and get them started setting up?
Are there people from the public here?
There's a proposed order. Oh. Yes, I don't know. I think they took care of it. You shot them. You should have seen the order.
I missed that order.
Yeah, we missed the order. Forgot about it too. Yeah, so it was regarding the Allen Rappaport variance. There's, we also have the second. Regarding the Allen Rappaport variance, we also had item B, which was possible action of the findings of fact and conclusions of law. We drafted a final order consistent with the hearing officer's recommendation. So being that the planning commission didn't make any changes to conditions and went with the same recommendation, if you would like to approve that final order today, it's in the packet.
Okay.
I would move to approve the final order.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Okay, continue. Are we ready to go? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Well,
do we have people from the public here?
Mr. Chair, I believe it's just the applicants that are here.
Do we have anybody from the public for this one?
I don't believe so.
Hello. I'll get Mike. I'll shoot her. She did stuff.
No, these are different references. Thanks. We need a, this needs a stick. Thank you, Charlie. Can you put this out for just for reference? 'Cause it's-
Okay, you guys ready? Okay, next case, number 19-5200, New Mexico Gas Company Transmission Line Project. Jose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. New Mexico Gas Company applicant Jenkins Gavin agent are requesting a conditional use permit to construct approximately 13.5 miles of new underground 20-inch in diameter natural gas transmission pipeline. The proposed transmission pipeline will begin at the western boundary of Santa Fe County at the base of La Bajada and will terminate at the New Mexico NMGC's existing regulator station located on Highway 599 and I-25. The proposed transmission pipeline will traverse through 11 separate parcels within a proposed 50-foot easement within Township 15 North, Range 8 East, Sections 11, 15, 17, and 35, Township 15 North, Range 7 East, Sections 21, 22, 23, and 34, and Township 16 North, Range 8 East, Sections 26, 34, and 35, SDA 1 and 3, Commission Districts 3 and 5. New Mexico Gas Company proposes to construct approximately 13.5 miles of 20-inch steel transmission main line, which will loop the existing 12-inch Santa Fe main line. The route follows the existing and new right-of-way between the Highway 599 regulator station and in Santa Fe and the western boundary of Santa Fe County at the bottom of La Bajada. The project includes inline inspection, tool launcher, and receiver stations, block valves, and tie-ins to existing stations. The project will require a 50-foot easement or right-of-way for the new line, which includes 25 feet for a working lane and 25 feet for a passing lane. In addition, another adjacent 25 feet will be utilized temporarily for spoil and is only required during construction. The disturbed area will be reclaimed and stabilized per the requirements of the reclamation plan once construction is completed. The transmission line will be installed per the standard NMGC details with a minimum cover depth of 4 to 7 feet below existing grade and a minimum of 7 feet where the line bores across any waterways. A geotechnical evaluation report has been completed to fully understand the subterranean conditions and engineer the project accordingly. NMGC is actively securing easements with 11 private landowners as well as rights-of-way with the New Mexico Department of Transportation, which includes 2 NMDOT rail runner crossings and 1 Interstate 25 crossing. All NMDOT crossings will be done via directional drilling as to not disturb the existing improvements. The transmission line will traverse through several miles of land outside of Santa Fe County zoning jurisdiction, including 1.3 miles of Santo Domingo Pueblo property, 0.5 miles of National Guard property, 0.6 miles of NMDOT property, and 0.4 miles of state property. The remaining 10.7 miles is private property over which Santa Fe County does have zoning jurisdiction. The applicant states the Department of Energy originally built the SFML in the 1940s to serve the Manhattan Project. The SFML pipeline extends through Cuba to Los Alamos, across the Santa Fe National Forest, and across the Via Caldera National Preserve. NMGC utilizes the pipeline to augment the supply to north central New Mexico, including Los Alamos Labs and Los Alamos County. The construction of the new 20-inch natural gas transmission pipeline in Santa Fe County would allow NMGC to eliminate the DOE main line, which would reduce the maintenance requirements of that line and reduce capital expenditures related to integrity assessments. Furthermore, the new transmission line will increase capacity to northern New Mexico, as well as provide 20-inch SFML loop capacity for 40-plus years. The applicant also states the route for the proposed pipeline was selected after detailed environmental, archaeological, and technical analysis. The pipeline corridor begins at the western boundary of Santa Fe County at the base of La Bajada and ends at NMGC's existing Highway 599 regulator station. To the extent feasible, the route follows the route of an existing 12-inch transmission line referred to as the Santa Fe main line. In Santa Fe County, the pipeline route will be located primarily in new easements and rights-of-way that will be 50 feet in width. The planned route runs through 11 private parcels within Santa Fe County. Ordinance number 2016-9, the Sustainable Land Development Code, Appendix B, Use Matrix, identifies long-distance or bulk pipelines for petroleum products, natural gas, or mineral slurry as a conditional use within the agricultural, ranching, rural fringe, and mixed-use districts, and as a permitted use within the PD zoning districts. At the hearing officer hearing on November 19, 2019, staff presented an exhibit which illustrated a realignment of the proposed easement which runs through Mr. Paul Parker's Santa Fe Metro property, and a letter from SelectGrow, a company acquiring easement for NMGC, that addresses the acquisition of the realigned easement, and an aerial photograph illustrating the realignment of the easement. A condition pertaining specifically to the realignment was added by staff, which states, prior to this application moving forward to the Planning Commission, the applicant shall submit a geotechnical evaluation report, an archaeological study, and a terrain management plan for the realignment of the easement on the Santa Fe Metro property to be reviewed and approved by staff and SHPO. This condition has been complied with by the applicant. Staff and SHPO have reviewed the documents submitted and have determined that this portion of the easement complies with the state requirements and design standards set forth in the SLDC. Also at the hearing, the applicant proposed a friendly amendment to condition number 2 to add language to the end of that sentence, and therefore the condition would read as follows: or evidence of a right of entry pursuant to the New Mexico condemnation statute. The hearing officer and staff agreed to the request. Condition number 2 in this staff report incorporates the amendment. Also at the hearing officer on November 19th, there were 4 members from the public who spoke and had concerns regarding the proposed development. The concerns included safety, width of easement, boring under the rail runner, and the possible condemnation of property. These questions were addressed by the applicant's team and staff, which is documented in Exhibit 10 of this report. The applicant has addressed the conditional use permit criteria per section 4.9.6.5, and staff has responded to the applicant's response. The applicant submitted an environmental impact and physical impact assessment. Staff has determined that both the EIR and the FIA prepared for the proposed CUP meets the intent outlined in section 6.3 and section 6.7 of the SLDC. The applicant addressed the applicable design standards outlined in chapter 7 of the SLDC. The applicant addressed access, fire protection, protection of historic and archaeological resources, and terrain management. Staff has determined that the above-mentioned design standards, as addressed by the applicant, meet the criteria set forth in chapter 7. Building Development Services staff has reviewed this project for compliance with pertinent SLDC requirements and has found that the facts presented support the request for a conditional use permit to construct approximately 13.5 miles of new underground 20-inch in diameter natural gas transmission pipeline. The use is compatible with the current development within the affected zoning districts. The use will not impact adjacent land uses, and the application satisfies the submittal requirements set forth in the SLDC, inclusive of the conditional use criteria set forth in Chapter 4, Section 4.9.6.5. The review comments from the State Historic Preservation Office and county staff have established findings that this application to construct 13.5 miles of new underground 20-inch in diameter natural gas transmission pipeline is in compliance with state requirements and design standards set forth in the SLDC. On November 19, 2019, this request was presented to the Sustainable Land Development Hearing Officer. The hearing officer memorialized findings of fact and conclusions of law in a written order on this request. The hearing officer, based on the evidence presented, recommended approval of the request for a conditional use permit to allow approximately 13.5 miles of new underground 20-inch in diameter natural gas transmission pipeline with the conditions recommended by staff. The recommendation of the hearing officer and staff's recommendation is for approval of a conditional use permit to allow approximately 13.5 miles of new underground 20-inch in diameter natural gas transmission pipeline meandering through 11 separate properties commencing at the western boundary of Santa Fe County at the base of La Bajada and terminating at the NMGC's existing regulator station located at Highway 599, subject to the following conditions. Mr. Chair, may I enter those conditions into the record?
Yes, you may.
Mr. Chair, this report and the exhibits listed below are hereby submitted as part of the hearing record, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Jose. Does the
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Commissioner have any questions of staff? JJ?
I have to disclose that I attended the November 19th hearing officer meeting. My family partnership had a notice of this project, and I came just as a member of the public. I sat and didn't ask any questions, and the county attorney asked me to say that at this meeting. And I think I can hear this case, and I don't have any interest or anything in this matter, so
Okay, thank you.
just for the record.
Thank you. Okay. Does the commission have any questions of staff? No? Okay,
What was your question?
does the commission have any questions of staff?
Yes, I do. How, this application says it'll improve service to parts of northern New Mexico. How will this project improve gas service to northern New Mexico? What specific areas?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Raznik, I believe the applicant would be better suited to answer that. It's not something we would analyze on how it would better serve. That's what the applicant put in their statement and their report, and so we wouldn't analyze how it would serve.
I'd appreciate if the applicant would address that question.
Okay. Please go ahead, start with your presentation.
Oh, Mr. Swear you will mind.
Absolutely.
Everybody raise your right hand.
Mr.
Do you
Chair.
swear from the testimony that you give the whole truth?
I do.
Before you speak, please state your name.
Chair Gonzalez, Commissioners, thank you very much for having us here today. I'm Colleen Gavin with Jenkins Gavin, and I also have Frank Herdman here on behalf of New Mexico Gas. And before we begin our presentation, I'd like Tom Dome, General Counsel for New Mexico Gas, to introduce his team.
Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Tom Dome, that's D-O-M-M-E, and I'm the General Counsel and the Vice President of Regulatory Affairs for New Mexico Gas Company. Now, with me today, I have part of the team, and the team back in Albuquerque is much bigger than this. But so with me today, I have Angela Serrano de Rivera. She's an engineer with New Mexico Gas Company and has been involved in most, if not all, of the engineering aspects of this pipeline. And so she can answer the engineering types of questions that you raise. And also with me is Curtis Winter, and Curtis is for lack of a better term, a land man. He's a director in the land and land use department of New Mexico Gas Company, and has been very involved in putting together the permits and the right-of-ways and the easements for this project. Let me start by talking very briefly, and then I'll turn it over to the true experts. I'm just a lawyer, so I'll turn it over to the people that actually know what they're doing. So this is part of a project that runs all the way from Bernalillo, New Mexico, all the way up to 599. So there's 13.5 miles in Santa Fe County, and then there's another 20-ish miles between Bernalillo and Santa Fe County. And so what it's intended to do with regard to service for northern New Mexico is we have a 12-inch line now that runs from Bernalillo to Santa Fe. And this is to loop that line, to double up that line, and in fact do more than that, to add 20 inches to that line. So what it does is it increases the reliability and the redundancy of the lines to Santa Fe and to northern New Mexico. So that's the main purpose. It's a rather large project for New Mexico Gas Company, and we have a lot of people working on it. And so that, in a nutshell, is what it's intended to do, is increase the reliability to northern New Mexico. And as Colleen and Angela and Curtis will explain in much more detail, the 12-inch line will stay, the 20-inch line will supplement that, and it will increase reliability to northern New Mexico. So with that, I'll turn it over to Colleen and to Angela and to Curtis and allow them to explain in detail what we're doing.
Okay, great. Well, Tom, thank you very much for that very nice, concise description. So again, I'm Colleen Gavin with Jenkins Gavin, and so we've submitted an application for conditional use permit, which is required for this infrastructure improvement to be installed in Santa Fe County. And as you can see here from the map as Tom described, currently the line, this is a map of all of the distribution throughout northern New Mexico. And the portion of the improvements here that we're discussing for the conditional use permit are basically in the Santa Fe County, coming up from the western boundary of Santa Fe County at Santo Domingo, up La Bajada, paralleling I-25, and terminating at the 599 bypass regulator station there. And so basically, as we described in our report, this is basically to increase the capacity to northern New Mexico. And as we say that basically we need to add additional capacity for the future to serve customers of northern New Mexico, in particular Santa Fe County. Also, the 20-inch main line provides capacity for 40 years. And of course, we need to evaluate, I'll go back one slide, the future of the old 1940s DOE line. We're going to reevaluate to see if that remains in place to continue as a distribution line. Does that get removed? And that's to be determined. So basically, this is old infrastructure. Again, the new main line is going to basically replace that and provide reliability in the service. And so as Jose mentioned, the entire length is about 13.5 miles. We have 12 miles within Santa Fe County's jurisdiction. The other section of the line occurs within Santo Domingo Pueblo, state property, and the Armory property, and New Mexico DOT right-of-way. And again, I think I'm being a little bit redundant in Jose's very thorough staff report, but again, starting at the bottom of La Bajada and coming up to the regulator station at 599. So here is a map of the overall route, which you have in your report. Again, you can see here is Santa Fe County line. Santa Fe County boundary, is right here. This is Santo Domingo. This is where Santa Fe County jurisdiction begins. And we have 11 parcels that are enumerated here. And those are identifying the parcels for which we have secured easements. So we actually have easements in all the parcels in question. And I would like to hand out these books because I think this will give you a much better understanding of where the line is going and what the properties are. Pass these out. So Charlie, do you need one? I have an extra. You can
I
have
do.
mine.
Yeah, you can have, someone can have mine as well.
A lot of people at the table. So you can see here from the cover of the book just identifies the parcel number, and that is referenced again on the map that you see here on the screen. And it identifies the main line easement number, so that's the numbers you see in the second column, the property owner's names, the zoning per the SLDC, and then, of course, the section, township, and range. So if you go to the next page, and I will pull that up on the screen as well. There we go. So this is identifying, again, the 11 parcels where easements have been secured, and those easement docs are recorded and are included in the booklet in the back per the tabs. So for instance, parcel 1 is a parcel, it's the Cummings parcel 1 and 2 that comes up La Bajada Hill there at the La Cienega, pardon me, at the Cochiti exit. And again, 3, 4. And so you can see there the route of the proposed line. And again, on the upper right-hand corner, you can see where there's the poche of the blue. That's identifying this state property where it is not within the Santa Fe County's jurisdiction, but we just wanted to be very clear where this line is running. And then towards the end, as underneath I-25 and along Frontage Road to the north, that is all in New Mexico DOT. So, pardon me, let me flip back here. So I'm just going to go through the parcels. So if you continue in the book, you can see here, what we've done is we've done enlarged kind of snapshots of the route. And you can see here where we have Santo Domingo property on the left-hand side of the sheet. There's the Cochiti exit. New Mexico 16 is right there. At that area, as we all know, driving up La Bajada, the terrain is steep. There's an existing scar where the existing 12-inch line was installed. And so basically we are following that route where the terrain is beyond 30% in slopes. We're actually doing directional boring there to minimize any additional scarring, because the scarring that was incurred with that initial installation, 1965, thank you, in 1965 is still visible. So we do not want to repeat that. And then as you're coming up the hill and the terrain softens, then we will be doing our standard trench installation. So again, if you just flip through, you can see again parcel number 2 coming up, and then the more gentle terrain. And here actually in the map, you can see this dashed yellow line. That's the existing 12-inch line. And so we're paralleling the 12-inch line within the 50-foot easement. And then at that point, the 12-inch line actually goes to the north to the other side of the interstate and continues on into Santa Fe. So that's going to remain in place, as Tom mentioned and as Jose mentioned. And the new 20-inch line is actually going to be on the south side of I-25 as it's coming into Santa Fe.
Mr. Chair, I had a question. I see they have an existing easement for a 12-inch line.
Correct.
And I see at that point where you mentioned it follows the easement up to that point where it crosses under the freeway. And you're gonna branch out from that for the new line. Why is that? Why can't you follow the existing easement that you already have?
So Chair Gonzalez, Commissioner Gonzalez, pardon me, and Commissioners, that's a really good question. And as just a blanket statement, because we wanted to minimize the impact of this new infrastructure improvement. But I'm going to allow New Mexico Gas to answer that because they took a lot of care looking at environmental issues, existing development concerns about disrupting existing development, because that 12-inch line actually runs through existing neighborhoods. And there's been encroachment on that existing easement for the 12-inch line. So in order to go in and actually parallel that line further would mean more disruption in existing established neighborhoods. Structures would potentially have to be removed. Also, that line does run through the racetrack as well, which has some challenges as well, some environmental concerns. So I'm going to allow New Mexico Gas to explain that further.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, my name is Curtis Winter.
As Tom mentioned, I'm the landman, or the guy that puts the line on the map when we initially designed the project. Commissioner Gonzalez, you have a very good question. As Colleen mentioned, if you can see on this map, most of our existing gas transmission is on the west side of I-25, and it does go through existing neighborhoods, and we've built encroachment to it. So two of the things that we consider when we site transmission facilities is trying to parallel other linear transportation features like an interstate or a road. Pipelines and roads typically lay well together on the land, so our design route was to follow I-25 as much as we can, 25 feet into a private easement for a 50-foot easement that parallels it the majority of the way into Santa Fe, and then ultimately trying to hit that 599 regulator station endpoint. We were moving that line as far as we could east of some of the existing development and serve it. And also a byproduct of that is it now provides transmission level gas onto the east side of the interstate. Where our existing transmission system and all of our existing distribution is built on the west side of the interstate. This will give us yet a new source for the parts of Santa Fe that grow south and east. And so we can, additional serve future customers and potential things. So that was two of the siting methodologies that we used when we deviated that. To build through the racetrack area is constrained. It's not possible. So we were then forced to find the next best alternative to get there, which led to, through a series of iterations, how to get there. Ultimately, all those things, linear transportation, existing buildings, development, we had the end of 599, being able to expand gas service in the area in the future, all those things led to us saying this is the preferred alternative.
That's an interesting explanation. But an easement is an easement. You acquired that easement many years ago, and I think you have the right to, request that you follow the easement.
So specifically, the existing pipeline is in the center of an existing 50-foot easement. The easement that we've acquired for the new pipeline parallel to the existing easement is a new 25 feet. So on parcels 1 and 2, we got an additional new 25-foot right-of-way parallel to that existing 1960s easement. And then we have, of course, new 50-foot right-of-way on all the additional parcels. So really, it was an interesting, we expanded the scope because the two pipelines are side by side, so we acquired additional 25 feet.
Well, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair? Okay. Steve, go ahead. Just a quick question here. Which one of these plat maps that you have kind of demonstrates this area around the racetrack?
If you go to the last one, just before the parcel 1 tab, and that will be the aerial that shows the racetrack.
Okay, thank you.
And the DOT right away.
Thank you. Okay, are we going to continue the presentation here?
Sure. Thanks. Okay. So again, let me see where we are. Okay, let me fast forward a little bit. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just quickly run through these. Again, you've got them in front of you. Again, where we've talked about, this is the existing 12-inch, and then we have the new alignment of the 20-inch transmission line. Paralleling I-25, going around the DOT right-of-way here. And then here's where this is the rail runner here line, and so that's where they'll be boring underneath that. Here is the we are at what's that exit called? I always forget. Pardon me.
Just
Let's see. So here's this exit here before the Waldo Canyon. And coming here again, going under that existing roadway here, going around the DOT right-of-way.
Mr. Chair, can you go back?
Yes.
So where there appears to be a break on the upper right-hand side, is that because it's going under a structure, no, further up?
Farther up.
Up here?
Right
Yeah.
there.
There's no break here. This is actually, this is a drainage way here.
It's just a label.
Yeah, it's label.
Or the label.
Oh,
You can see there's a
All right.
drainage here. It's a milepost label.
It's one of those things that just
okay.
sits on top of them.
Thank you.
Diagram.
Yeah. And again, there's some existing development here, so going around that here. And then here, the line actually turns to the east around the, this existing neighborhood here. The line takes an angle here. There's an existing archaeological site there that we'd like to keep in place and not disturb. And so that was rerouted here.
Mr. Chair, what specific areas, what, those areas are identified as what? What subdivisions, or if they are subdivisions?
So that's Taylor Loop right here, Taylor Loop here. So is that called Taylor Ranch? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Taylor Loop. So it's Taylor Loop here, Taylor Road is here, and then this is Corral Blanco Road right here.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Right off the frontage, yes. And then it continues here to the east. And continues here, this is Bonanza Creek Ranch, coming here and then turns north onto the state property here. And you can see here, this is the Quill waste water management plant here. And it comes here over here on, this is the National Armory property here. And then again, it parallels to this existing neighborhood here. Onto the Bonanza Creek property to the south. And then this is the Parker property where originally the route actually came further east and north along here. But per the request, prior to the hearing officer meeting, the Parkers requested that we reroute it here to the west. And so that was part of the conditions of approval from the hearing officer. And here you can see that it goes through this commercial subdivision here, and then into the DOT right away underneath I-25, and following frontage road, DOT right away here, and terminating at the transmission station here at 599.
Mr. Chair, so the property in the lower right, is that part of Rancho Viejo?
No.
No.
What does that identify as?
So this is a,
Not there.
this is 14.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So this is Highway 14 here.
Via Vista?
And this is,
Yeah, Via Vista subdivision?
there's 599 there.
Thank you.
And again, this is the table that you have in front of you in your booklet. So again, as I mentioned, just for the record, that all of the easements have been acquired and recorded. All of those easement documents are included in your booklet. And so that again was a condition of approval from the hearing officer and with the staff report. Let's see what we got here. Out of order. Okay, so kind of to some of the questions that we've received. The route and the layout of this took a lot of issues into account, a lot of concerns into account, obviously environmental issues. And a very extensive EIR was completed. And so we took a look at the cultural and biological surveys, we looked at waterways, wetlands, and stormwater, of course, to be implemented with our SWIP improvements, with our development permit, and then looking at visibility and view shed analysis. And so New Mexico Gas took many years to lay this out, to really think through it and see what is the least impact that we can have on our community, on the county, by providing this new infrastructure. And with any type of improvements, obviously there's some disruption, but the reclamation plan is extremely thorough. The oversight is extremely thorough. And so we have satisfied the requirements of the SLDC. Okay, so here's all of our easements. I just want to scroll down to here. So here's an example of the easement that was being described. So you can see here, this is the 25-foot temporary easement for the spoil, for the trenching, removal of the dirt for the trenching. Here's our trenching, typical trenching. This is a 20-inch pipe. Here's 25-foot work area and then a 25-foot passing lane. And so this is your typical installation condition. And then this is that same condition, but after reclamation. You can see that there is stabilization of the slopes, reseeding, and safety markers of that line. When you see gas lines throughout our landscape, throughout our community, you see these safety markers here. So that was included in our application as our signage. Just a detail of the signage. Again, that's a standard protocol for New Mexico Gas. Details of actual installation. And so as we discussed in our report in the presentation, we're going to be boring underneath waterways, roadways, and so other utilities, other utilities that are existing. And so there's standard details on how that installation occurs. This line is typically 4 to 7 feet below whatever that existing improvement is or natural condition is, if it's a waterway, depending on the situation. So you can see here we have a waterway, so this would be an arroyo or a creek, and having that burial minimum of 7 feet. Here we have boring underneath an existing roadway or highway, again, depending on it, 4 to 7 feet here. Here we have existing utilities where we're boring underneath it, having that required separation between utilities. And again, utilities for another pipeline, making sure that they have proper separation. And then access. Access is an issue. Access to this infrastructure is going to be within that 50-foot easement. So New Mexico Gas utilizes their own easement for access, for maintenance, and for oversight. Also, if it's required to construct a road to get to that, if a public right-of-way is not available, then this is a standard detail for access here.
Mr. Chairman, do you have mapped out where you think this access is going to be required? In other words, where you need to build roads?
Yes, actually, that was included in our application, and it was part of our staging plan. So I'm happy to hand these out, but this is an illustration of the staging plan that shows where we have to actually build access for the installation. And that was part of our application to the county. So again, as we discussed, emphasis on restoring the terrain to its natural condition. You can see here, typical pipeline installation, 2 years following construction. This is just post-construction where they've stabilized and done reseeding and some improvements to the slopes here, and then again, 2 years later, seeing the natural vegetation coming back. Part of our application was to address the conditional use criteria. I'm happy to go into any details that you may have questions about, but I thought that Jose handled that fine, very well in his staff report, so I won't go into that, but I do have that here available. And so with that, I just want to leave time for questions. So,
Does the commission have any questions of the applicant?
Mr. Chair,
JJ.
I think I have quite a few questions. The first questions I have is, I noticed in the report we got from county staff that you sent out over 300 letters.
yeah,
I just
394
wonder,
actually.
and according to Jose, I think you're only supposed to send out letters to adjoining property owners, which are probably very few property owners in that area. What was your reasoning to send out? Because my neighbors got letters. All my neighbors where I live got letters. I didn't personally get a letter, but my neighbors got letter, and they live, miles away. Some letters I saw went to South Salito, California. South Carolina. All over the country. Why was it you sent out 350 letters? And then a neighborhood meeting that you had, there was like 20 people showed up. And the hearing officer, there was like 4 people showed up. So were you expecting a lot of people to be involved with this project or come before this committee?
So Commissioner Gonzalez and Commissioners, so the county has a very strict requirement for notification for a neighborhood meeting. And that is you have to issue notice to properties 500 feet away from all parcels that are part of the application. So, and that's exclusive of public right-of-way. So if you look at our parcels here, 500 feet around number 4, 500 feet around number 5. Parcel number 5 goes all the way over here. Number 6 is all the way over here. Number 7, a bit smaller. But because of, so for instance, number 4 and 3, we had to go 500 feet on the other side of the interstate. And so because we were dealing with 11 separate parcels and a number of them are very large, Bonanza Creek Ranch is extremely large, and we had 3 parcels with Bonanza Creek Ranch. We were notifying people very south in, off of Highway 14. And so, yes, we actually had, 396, I believe, was our mailing. And so actually that is technically required. It was not a choice. So that's why we had a lot of people contacting our office with questions because they were concerned about, well, is this coming through my property? And so I would pull up their property on the map and take a look at it. And like you said, a lot of times our project was 5 miles away from their property. And yes, we were at our neighborhood meeting, we had actually 18 people sign in. I think there were a few more that came in late. So we probably had about 20. And yeah, we had a small showing at the hearing officer meeting. And it was actually good because we got to answer a lot of questions to some of the most immediate neighbors at the hearing officer meeting. So that's why we had such a large mailing.
Well, my next question is, I saw Exhibit 8. If you would look at Exhibit 8, where, and I think that was your letter, Jenkins Gavin's Exhibit 8. And that was at the neighborhood meeting that you had. I guess there was a Turquoise Trail Elementary.
Yes.
And on the second page, neighbors' questions. How many of those questions did you answer? You just listed the questions, but I didn't see any response from your representatives.
Oh, yes. So as part of our packet for the neighborhood meeting, we're required to provide notes from the meeting, document what we discussed and the questions that were asked. And so what we did is we summarized our presentation and the statements that we made, and then we documented the questions that the particular neighbors or people from the community asked. And so we did answer all those questions. Angela and Curtis were there with me, and they actually answered the majority of the technical questions. I answered the land use questions. Yes.
So can you answer some of those questions for us? Like how much pressure is the line going to carry? Things like that. I was concerned about that also because they asked a lot of questions, and those are some of the same questions that I was wondering about and what the answers are to those questions. So I just wondering how many of those questions you want to answer tonight. A few?
So let me grab that. Let me get it from the packet because there's a lot of documents here, and I can hand it over to Angela and Curtis.
I don't need answers to all of them. Just.
Is there any in particular that we'd
I
like to highlight?
highlighted just a few, and
Okay.
maybe the committee members would like answers to other questions. I just highlighted a few of those questions.
Yeah, go ahead and.
Yeah, let her pull up.
Here they are.
Probably have it in here.
It's right here.
You know, like from Jose Garcia, he just wants to know how much pressure is the line going to carry? You know,
So
there's,
the maximum allowable operating pressure for that line is 875 PSIG.
and then Judith is there asked a question about is this project of a countywide impact? You know, because you send out so many letters, and I was wondering, and then it covers, you know, you say it's in Sandoval County, it covers Santa Fe County, and then your main line is up in Rio Arriba County, or is that Sandoval County? You know, so this area, what you're talking about, is over several counties. Have you gotten to Bernalillo County or Sandoval County to present this project to them?
Yeah, so just for clarification, this application is just for Santa Fe County.
Yes.
And so New Mexico Gas is doing this gas line in other counties, so I'll let them answer that question.
Yeah, so, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we have absolutely, Angela and I talked with Sandoval County. The majority of the route in Sandoval County is on pueblos of Santa Ana, San Felipe, and Santo Domingo, as well as Buttiger's parcels, and a few private parcels right down at the beginning of the line. So we've talked with Sandoval County, and we've actually secured easements on all of those private parcels as well. So we've reached out, you know, to the community of Buttiger's. We've had some meetings with them, similar meetings in Sandoval County. They don't have the permitting specific requirements like we're doing here in Santa Fe County, but we've given them some awareness of the project.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Gonzalez. So yeah, this involves really two counties, this project, Sandoval County, and we've appeared in front of Sandoval County and Santa Fe County, and that's where we are today. And then we've negotiated right-of-ways with all three of the pueblos, Santa Ana, San Felipe, and Santo Domingo pueblos. So we have right-of-ways with all three, easements or leases with all three of those. The reference to Rio Arriba County and to the DOE line is simply not, this project doesn't specifically involve Rio Arriba County. What it does say is that if this project is approved, and if this line is looped, and if the gas to Santa Fe, Espanola, Taos, Red River, the Pueblos is secured because of a 20-inch looping of the 12-inch line, then it opens up options for either the elimination of that DOE line that you saw there, which was built by the government back in 1940 and is old and it requires a lot of maintenance and also runs through the Valles Caldera, and so that has created issues with that. So it either allows us to eliminate that line or to lower the pressure on that line. We still want to feed Los Alamos on a redundant line, like we want to feed Santa Fe on a redundant line. Right now, the DOE line serves that purpose. It allows us, yeah, so let me talk to you a little bit about this and the overall plan that we have. So here's Albuquerque right here. And here's the big Santa Fe main line that runs up from the Santa Fe junction right there, all the way to Santa Fe, then all the way up to Espanola, Taos, Red River, and so forth. Up here, up there is the San Juan Basin. And we take gas out of the San Juan Basin and bring it down this line, which is the Albuquerque main line, which feeds Albuquerque and also feeds Los Alamos and back feeds Santa Fe and feeds northern New Mexico because of that. So this is our northern system. We take gas off of, so the Permian Basin is down in the southeastern part of the state. The San Juan is up there. We take gas from both of those basins and serve all of New Mexico off that. So we bring gas up from the Permian Basin up through the big transwestern pipelines, and we take it off of those pipelines, and we take gas out of the San Juan Basin and bring it down this big pipeline here. And then we have redundancy on this line. We have redundancy off of this big triangle in effect. So we can feed Santa Fe from there or from there. That's what we like, the redundancy of that. The 20-inch pipeline allows us to do that redundancy here. We would hate to have a tractor or a backhoe or something rupture that 12-inch line and not have redundancy for it. So that's why we're doing this. That allows us to do that, allows us to backfeed that stuff. So that's the whole purpose of this whole project, is to allow for that kind of redundancy. And to do that, we had to negotiate with the Pueblos, Sandoval County, Santa Fe County. Does that help explain what we're
Yes,
doing?
it does.
And let me go back to your question a minute ago about that easement. For instance, what we're doing down here is we have a 12-inch pipeline and a 50-foot easement. We like that. We like to have 20 feet on each side of a big pipe like that. When we put the 20-inch pipeline in alongside that 12, we like to have that 20-inch pipeline 25 feet from the 12-inch pipeline. So if we do that, and that's what we've done in the Pueblos and so forth, we have negotiated, and everywhere, in fact, where we're following the current easement, we put the 20-inch pipeline 25 feet from the 12-inch pipeline. That means we have to get an additional 20-foot easement there. So that 50-foot easement that we've got now becomes 75. And that's why we can't run it right alongside the easement we have now in Santa Fe County, because when you look at those pictures, they've built right up to that 50-foot easement, and in some instances have even encroached into that, which we don't like. But we just couldn't put this line in that 50-foot easement. We had to grab 25 more feet, which would have been very difficult over in that part of Santa Fe. This way, we were able to put it into the areas that are not developed along there or outside of those developments, and so we only had to grab 50 feet. So we simply could not put it in the easement that we have right now. Does that help?
That explains it very well, yes. The other question I had was, one of the residents says, what is the total cost of the project? That was, go ahead.
So the total estimated cost right now is at about $63 million.
And the other question was, who's gonna pay for it? That is Catherine Bilton wants to know.
Let me answer that
if she's
question.
gonna pay for it or who.
The way these projects work is this would be a rate-based item. So what we do is we capitalize all of these major projects. And so it goes into the capital budget of the company, and it then goes into the rate base. And so who pays for this is everybody in New Mexico, not just the people alongside this. We have statewide rates on a statewide system, and so we capitalize these major projects. So the 62 million will go into the overall rate base for all customers in New Mexico. Right now, we're also building a pipeline way down, if this is New Mexico, pretend, way down in southeastern New Mexico, coming out of the Permian to get more gas out of the Permian that we can then feed into all of New Mexico, because there's a lot of gas in the Permian Basin. So we want to get some of that. So we're building a pipeline down there, another 20-mile pipeline. That pipeline also will be rate-based, and everyone in this room who's on gas will help pay for that. So all of our customers pay for all of these major projects.
And the other question I had, I guess you have to go before the PRC for this request.
Yes.
And when is that going to happen?
It's in front of the PRC right now. So we filed a rate case with the PRC on December 23rd of last year, and it's pending right now. It's going to hearing on August 10th through the 18th. I just got the pre-hearing conference on that. And in that rate case are the capital spend for the period from September of 17 or 18, our last rate case, through the future test year of 2021. So in that case, is this capital project, assuming that it gets done. Now, if it doesn't get done, then it would be backed out. And all of these projects, everything that we do is subject to a prudency review by the PRC. So the PRC will look at all of our capital spend and determine which of that capital spend is used and useful assets prudently incurred by the company for the benefit of its ratepayers. So that is pending right now in front of the PRC and will be decided by them in this rate case probably a few months after that hearing in August of this year.
Mr. Chair. Thank you. I have a question for the engineer. What's the time frame of this project? When is it gonna begin and when is it gonna end? I mean, I guess you wanted to do it sometime in 2020?
Correct, yes.
Is
So
that
we have
gonna
an
happen?
estimated start date of the end of April or April-May timeframe. And we hope to be finished by October of 2020.
Oh, let me ask
Yeah,
one more
just have
question.
follow-up on
I read in this packet that as far as road work and impacting any of the roadways, you mentioned it was zero impact. And I had a question about that because you're bringing in like 13 and a half miles of pipeline or in that vicinity. And I wonder how many truckloads of pipe that would be. I would say it would be in the hundreds of
A
truckloads.
lot of truckloads.
But you said there was zero impact on any other roads. And I think the county staff had a little hesitation on that. They said that, it will impact during construction, but you mentioned zero impact, and I want you to explain that.
So if there's any disturbance that's created during the project, by the end of the project, we ensure that we put back the terrain, anything that we disturbed back to its original condition. We take pictures before the project, during the project, after the project. So we are very diligent on ensuring that we go back to its original state.
Mr. Chair?
I'm talking
I think
about-
he's about traffic.
I'm talking about the truckloads that bring in the pipe, 20 or 13 miles of pipe. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Hundreds of truckloads, probably.
Right. So there may be some impact to traffic, but that's just the normal course of business. It's going to be, we have standards for making sure that the pipe is secured and that it's transported safely. And we try to minimize the pipe delivery at times where the traffic is not a high traffic time. I believe in our scope of work, we indicate to the contractor, if possible, to do it, later in the evenings, early morning timeframes. So the impact to traffic will not be that significant.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Gonzalez, I think when we were answering that question, we may not have anticipated the point that you were trying to make, and you have a good point. We obviously have to get the pipe from the train station where it arrives to the location where we're going to build it. So there obviously will be truck traffic on the highway, and maybe we should have mentioned that, but there clearly will be. And like Angela says, we will minimize the impact of that as much as we can. I don't know how else to get the pipe to where we need to put it into the ground. So for instance, when we just did a pipeline down on the Isleta, not the Isleta, the Laguna Pueblo, off from those interstates that I was describing. There was a 20-mile pipeline that we built, and we had to do the same thing. We had to bring it in on a rail, then bring it on trucks. And frankly, that was going out I-40 and so forth. We did not get any complaints about abuse of the highways or too many trucks and so forth. And that's a very comparable project. That was 20-inch pipe as well, and we didn't get any complaints. So maybe we didn't anticipate your point, but we will minimize that as much as we possibly can.
You probably get a little bit of impact too from the bedding, the trucks bringing in your bedding. I know the gas company is really critical of the bedding material.
Yes.
So those trucks coming in as well is probably going to make an impact as well.
Yeah,
Continue, JJ.
We maybe should have mentioned that, and we didn't.
Mr. Chair?
Okay, let JJ finish his question.
I thought.
I'm done. I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Does the gas company anticipate from the I-25 599 termination point of this project doing work beyond that?
So,
in other words, continuing up.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have
it's a great question there. So, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, we actually already looped that section in 2008 and 9. We installed a 20-inch piece of pipe from the north end of Cabo Rio around the city of Santa Fe along the 599 corridor, following that linear transportation corridor, and terminated at 599 and built that station in 2009. So that's why it's the termination point of the new line coming up, is we did that work a decade ago now.
You're hooking on.
We're hooking on to that, and that's why that termination point is where we've got to be, because we did 20-inch there in 2009. Now we're tying to that 20-inch, 20-inch today.
And I have a follow-up question. This may be relevant or not. I don't know if it was last winter or a couple winters ago, there was a problem of gas up in the Taos area. Will this project improve the ability to get natural gas to those parts of northern New Mexico?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Resnick, absolutely, it will. That was more than a couple years ago. Time flies. That was in
2011.
That was in 2011, February 4th, 2011. Yes.
Trust us, we know that date well. We didn't sleep for like a week.
Or several years. So yes, this will do that. Now, we've done several things since 2011 to improve the reliability to northern New Mexico, including, and I mentioned this, that pipeline down in the Laguna Pueblo, that looped the gas that we can take off of the interstate pipelines there and feed it into that Santa Fe junction right here. So we increased our capacity coming off of this interstate here, and we also changed out some compressors. We've already done a lot of things to minimize the impact of that again. This will help. Obviously, if you put another 20-inch line on top of a 12-inch line, it allows us to get gas from the Santa Fe junction right there. Even though it's in Rio Rancho, it's called the Santa Fe junction. The Rio Rancho junction up into northern Mexico. So this will absolutely help do that, yes. And also alleviating the reliance on this, I don't want to use this word, this older pipeline will help us as well, because this is it's brand new pipe, it's bigger pipe, it's better pipe, and there's so much gas coming out of the Permian right now up into these interstates, off into Arizona and California. This is a big supply of gas. It doesn't freeze as much. It's a better supply. So yes, it absolutely will.
And one follow-up question. What is a life expectancy of the 1940 pipe?
The DOE 1940 pipe. So right now it's 80 years old. So pipelines are, the life of a pipeline is about 100 years. However, New Mexico Gas likes to replace our pipelines between 50 to 80 years. But life expectancy industry-wide is 100 years for steel pipelines.
So this is also dealing with preventative maintenance as well?
Correct.
Now, we engage in a very active, we could go on and on and on about all the programs we have with regard to the resiliency of our pipe and the inspections of our pipe and on and on. And right now, we are very active in the DOE line, making sure that the DOE line is safe and reliable and all those things. The costs of that are going up exponentially as the years go by. And so putting in a brand new pipe makes the cost of O&M and those kind of things less, which is good for the ratepayers of New Mexico Gas Company.
Thank you.
Okay, Steve, did you have something?
Yes, I'd like to kind of pick up on some of the questions that you were asking, and that has to do with the existing 12-inch line. When was that installed initially?
So the existing, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, actually going back, the first pipeline to Santa Fe was built in the 1930s. It was a Santa Fe mainline. It was an 8-inch pipeline. It was taking gas from Bernalillo to the city of Santa Fe. And then that pipeline was replaced in over a 2-year time period, 1964 and 1965. They looped that 8-inch pipeline with a 12-inch pipeline, beginning in Santa Fe to about Santo Domingo in 1964. And then in 1965, they went from Santo Domingo the rest of the way to Santa Fe. So if we're talking about the history lesson of that big map, when you look at our transmission system, it gets built and replaced in chunks in decades, not all at the same time, not all at the same place. There's a lot of designing that Angela and I do into programmatically, how do we do this? And so this 12-inch pipeline was built in 64 and 65. We're in 2020, and we're trying to modernize that infrastructure, I think is the end of the day. That's really the backbone of what we're here today to discuss. You know, we talk a lot about the specific stuff. We've tried to limit our responses specifically to the Santa Fe County conditional use permitting process, but like Tom mentioned, there's there's a much bigger, there are many more things at play.
So there's still good life expectancy in this 12-inch line yet?
Correct.
Yes.
Some of the questions that were asked was, what kind of problems, if any, have you encountered with the 12-inch line that exists today?
A few of the things, or we can talk about it.
So the existing line that we see, so you're talking about the DOE main line or the Santa Fe main line,
The Santa Fe
12-inch?
main line.
So the integrity on it is actually very good. So we monitor the integrity. We put a what's called an inline inspection tool into the pipeline, which it assesses and looks for any anomalies in that pipeline. So to date, the pipe has looked very good. There hasn't been any issues. I think we maybe had some third-party damages, but as no result of the integrity of the pipeline.
Some what damages?
Third party.
Oh, third party.
Tractors, backhoes,
Yeah.
those kind
Yeah.
of things.
Yep.
On this 20-inch line, in your documentation, you say that these valves will be installed every 7 to 10 miles?
Right.
Okay. Do you have on one of these maps where you plan on putting these valves?
So we do not show where the valve placement is on the maps.
Yeah.
We know the vicinity of where we're placing these valves, but we do not have a exact pinpointed location.
Or what's the vicinity?
So,
How many are we talking?
So we're talking about one valve, and it's actually going to be just off of the Bonanza Creek Road. So if you go
In the area.
in that area,
Yes,
So only one valve.
correct.
in the Santa Fe County.
In
correct.
Santa Fe
In
County.
Santa Fe County.
About every 7 miles they occur as we go along. We should describe this valve to you because you
Yeah,
probably
I was
want to know
about
what it's going to look like.
So a block valve is a assembly that is in the center of a pipe. So it comes up out of ground in the pipe, and it's at the center of the pipe, and it's a valve that blocks gas flow in case there's any need to shut down the gas.
Right. Like
This
shut
one's
off valve.
remote.
Right.
This one's-
Okay.
This
But-
one's remote too.
Oh, and it's a remote. So if there's any leaks or any indication that we need to shut down the pipe, we can do it remotely from Mexico Gas.
Okay, that was kind of my other question was, who's the keeper of the keys on this? Let's say a terrible incident. You have, well, let's say not so terrible. Some backhoe hits your 20-inch line. All right, well, you're going to want to probably shut the gas off.
Right.
Who makes that decision?
So our pipelines are monitored 24/7 from our SCADA center. So they're actually on monitors. There's somebody there watching it to look for any indications of pressure loss. So if there's any indications of pressure loss, they immediately make contact with engineering, and then there's somebody that gets sent out to assess. But if there's any major pressure loss, those pipelines can get shut down immediately.
So the gas company makes this decision.
Correct.
All right.
We have a gas control center in Albuquerque
Yeah,
with
sure.
remote access to shut off these valves and can access them remotely and also send people out to do it on site.
How about going the other way, outside of Santa Fe County here? Where's the next shutoff valve going south?
Well, going south, there's one on Santo Domingo existing at State Road 22.
No, on the 20-inch line I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So I have a list here that I can look at real fast. Yes. So the valves will be at Placitas Block Valve, Algodones, the 12-inch Santa Fe mainline at San Felipe Block Valve, Santo Domingo Block Valve, Cochiti, Bonanza Creek, the Highway 599 regular station, and then potentially at the San Felipe regular station and
Okay. So if you got 20-inch line and you've got 7 to 10 miles of this, how much gas is in that? At this kind of a pressure?
As far as
Um,
MCF?
yeah, that's a good question. I would have to run some calculations. I don't have that off the top of my head right now.
But it'd be a lot of gas.
It'd be a lot of gas.
Yeah, so if you shut the valve off, you had some downstream issue, there'd be a lot of gas coming out yet, right?
Correct.
Okay. That's what I have for the client today.
Okay, any other questions of, from the commission to the applicant? I have a couple myself. That 1940 line, that's not fused, is it?
So it's welded,
It's welded?
yes.
I'm just curious, because I know all your lines are all fused now, right?
The polyethylene, the PE
Right,
ones are,
right,
yep.
right. So, okay, so it doesn't have bells?
Excuse me?
That old line doesn't have bells on it?
Bells?
The joint bells?
Oh, no.
Like regular line,
Right,
okay, okay. And on your alignment, is there any existing culverts or anything you have to go under or anything like that?
There is.
So they're along the Bonanza Creek Road, a couple different areas, more so south that we're dealing with towards the Algodones type area, but in Santa Fe County, the Bonanza Creek area, I believe there's one kind of up along the I-25 area, but there's not a large number of them.
What kind of separation are you looking at?
18-inch minimum.
18-inch minimum? Sounds about right.
Is the current separation. That's what's shown on those drawings that Colleen had pulled up.
Okay.
And that's consistent with any other utility, any foreign utility, any line
Yes.
crossing, and also with state law.
Okay, another question I have is that I saw you on your report, you're gonna bore under arroyos, drainage ways. Is there any situations where you're not gonna be able to do that boring? And the reason I'm bringing that up because I'm wondering if, as far as SWIP is concerned.
Absolutely. So absolutely, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Do you want to finish your
Yeah, I'm just curious if that's gonna be a situation where you're gonna have to end up having to do trenching instead of boring in any of these flow lines or arroyos.
So there is a mix, and there are some ephemeral streams that we do propose to open cut. We're doing that under Nationwide Permit 12 with the Army Corps of Engineers. We actually got we've developed a pre-construction notice to the Army Corps of Engineers. We've got, I think, 43 total water crossings between the start of the line in Santa Fe County. I think there's a dozen or more here in Santa Fe County. Alamo Creek, the big wetlands, the real defined intermittent streams, and the sensitive environmental areas, we absolutely bore because that's not an impact, and that's one of our construction methods to minimize our impact on the environment. One of the good neighbor things that we do in our best practice. But some of the other ephemeral streams up towards the north end of Bonanza Creek and others, those will be open cut. But once again, those are under a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers.
So my question would also be is that if there's some issues where you have to do some trenching, crossing any of those flow lines and stuff, are you guys gonna end up putting like wattles or silt fences
straw wattles
downhill from the spoils?
Absolutely. Yes, sir, Mr. Commissioner. We use silt fence and straw wattles as BMPs. We also use, one of our other BMPs is timing and duration. So we cross them in a very short time period. We don't leave an open excavation across the potential waterway for a period of time. They come to it, they excavate it, they install the pipe, they backfill it. We do a semi-permanent stabilization at those water crossings very quickly.
On your revegetation or your reclamation, I saw some photos and stuff. But is it going to be just all revegetation, or are you going to put trees back in? Or what I saw, I didn't see any trees. But what is your intent on that?
So, Mr. Commissioner, we do not plant trees in the right of way as part of the reclamation. The seed mix that we use is the NMDOT North seed mix. So if we were doing this project on federal lands, we would be doing the seed mix spec to us by the agency. We are using the NMDOT approved seed mix for this area, and that's the seed that we would use. It's a mixture of grasses, cool season, warm season, and shrubs, but no trees specifically.
So are you going to be hydro-seeding?
We will be hydro-seeding steep slopes in particular areas where we can't. The majority of it will be disked, drilled, straw mulch.
Are you going to be using any erosion control blankets?
In those steep areas, we find that erosion control blankets mixed with hydro-seeding is our two best alternatives. Stormwater, we have a stormwater pollution prevention plan. We've already filed the notice of intent under NPDES. We absolutely will follow it. We'll be monitoring it during construction. And then, there's a 3-year revegetation requirement that we will follow, not only with the EIR, but with that stormwater NPDES permit as well. So we will continue to monitor it, and we will do that. And as Tom mentioned, we do lots of transmission pipeline work around the state in different parts, and it's a core of what we do.
I highly recommend utilizing those coconut blankets instead of straw. Those things fall apart in about a year. So,
Mr. Chairman, actually, I have some personal experience with that. Those pictures that Colleen showed from 2003 was the first time I used coconut blankets on the bank of an arroyo. And so you spread seed underneath, put those coconut blankets on top. I agree, they're way better than straw. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Any other questions from Leroy?
I have one question. About 5 years ago, we ran out of gas. If you people remember Chimayo, La Puebla, and all of this, all of a sudden, in the middle of the day, there's no more gas. Could you explain to me what happened? Because our commissioner at the time was Mr. Block, and we couldn't get too many answers out of him. So,
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sure you're well aware.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Lopez, I absolutely can explain to you what happened. So on February the 3rd of 2011, we had ordered gas to come out of the Fort Worth and Permian Basin to New Mexico. There was, as you recall, that week, it was incredibly cold here in New Mexico, and you know that.
It was cold.
It was also, unfortunately, very, very cold in the Permian Basin. And so what happened was they froze off. The Permian Basin froze off. So there was a purple blob, as I call it, sitting over New Mexico and over the Permian Basin. So it froze off. It doesn't typically freeze off. So we ordered gas both out of the San Juan Basin, which we always do, and we anticipate freeze-offs in the San Juan because it freezes pretty often, and the Permian. We ordered the gas. It did not arrive. And so what it was a shortage of gas coming into New Mexico from Texas. We were investigated as a result of that by FERC, by the PRC, by the state legislature. We were sued, and we've investigated that thing repeatedly. When I went to FERC and was arguing to FERC about that problem, I argued to FERC that FERC should have ensured that gas that comes onto the interstate pipelines, and the lawyers in the room know what I'm talking about, the interstate pipelines FERC only regulates the transmission lines, not the production of oil and gas in Texas. I argued to FERC that they could affect that by restricting the use of those pipelines to winterized full year gas. They would not do that. And so I was not able to get FERC to change the federal legislation on ensuring gas to New Mexico. So that's what happened. We got frozen off of the Permian Basin. And like I said, since then, what we've done is we've reworked our contracts coming out of the Permian Basin. We've reworked the pipelines coming out of the Permian Basin. We've also accessed, and I should point this out as well, we've also accessed gas supplies coming out of the North Dakota, Wyoming areas, which is also winterized gas. And so we've done a lot to ensure that if the Permian freezes off again, we have access to winter gas in effect. Oh, and that's right. And then we've also increased our storage. So we've done a lot since 11 to ensure that that doesn't happen again. And we apologize. This comes up all the time. We apologize for that. That was not our favorite period of time either. We know that the people in northern New Mexico suffered tremendously. We've apologized as much as we can, and we've done everything we possibly can to ensure that that doesn't happen again. I cannot guarantee that it will never happen again. I could, but your rates and your bills would probably be 10 times what they are right now. There's a relationship between service reliability and rates, and we have to make that blend, and we have to go to the PRC, and we have to justify all this stuff. So it was not our fault that it froze off in 11, and we've done everything we can to ensure that it doesn't happen again.
From a design point of view, we designed all of our systems to meet that, what we call a heating degree day. So the temperature on that February 11th, we ensure that our systems are designed to meet the worst case scenario. So everything going forward is.
Yeah. And it was crazy, believe me.
The amount of gas that was used in northern New Mexico on that day was enormous compared to the normal usage. Now we've designed our system to that worst case usage. And so we've got redundancies built into our system to account for that kind of usage.
One of the major questions was they didn't bury the lines deep enough.
No.
Well,
That's not true.
No.
And everybody started worrying about the hospitals, the police departments, on and on and on. So, this is just to ensure that.
The depth of the lines did not have anything to do with that, and we did everything we possibly could to ensure that those priority customers, hospitals, residences, all those things were. We have an extensive system of prioritizing customers, residential customers. I mean, New Mexico Gas Company is a heating load utility. There's not a lot of industry, as those of us in New Mexico. 99% of what we do is provide heating load gas to homes and small businesses in New Mexico. So we have an extensive method where we can prioritize residential customers, hospitals, those kind of priority customers.
Transmission line.
Well, yes, and cutting off industrial customers because they can always come back on. Residences have a harder time. And as you know, in that outage in 2011, we arranged for a fund, $1 million fund, to pay people who had their homes cut off. And so we didn't ask for releases. We didn't do anything except pay them money for their expenses during that period of time. And I think that was pretty successful, and I think most of the people in New Mexico thought that was a reasonable thing to do in light of what was going on.
It lasted about 3 days.
It lasted from Thursday morning until really the vast majority of customers were back on Tuesday mid-afternoon. So more than 3 days. 5, 6 days.
I got gas.
Yeah.
That's all that matters, right?
That's what everybody thought, yes, but it was about 5 or 6 days.
Anything else, Leroy? All right.
That's it, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much
Brett?
for explaining.
You're welcome.
You talked about storage of the natural gas. How do you store natural gas?
So natural gas is stored in salt caverns. So there's a large salt cavern that's located in Texas where we put gas into the salt cavern, which is, we are able to access it when we need it. So it's a large salt cavern.
So if you had the weather condition like described, would you be able to access that
Yes.
salt cavern?
Yes.
Now, so we have 3.2 BCF of gas down in those big salt caverns in West Texas. 3.2 BCF of gas is a lot of gas. What froze off in 2011 was approximately 5 BCF of gas. And so we would be able to access those salt caverns. But I cannot guarantee you that we would be able to access enough gas fast enough to do this. I mean, it is a very good protection blanket for us, but you couldn't replace all the gas in the pipeline. So we've done as much as we can with storage. Storage is just one component of an overall plan to have gas available in a situation like that.
But we do have redundancy out of the San Juan Basin as well.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So,
Okay. Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody up there that wants to speak in favor or against this project? Nobody out there?
I have a question. Has staff received any negative comments on this project?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Raznik, I got a few calls, but as Colleen mentioned, they got noticed and they were pretty far away. And after explaining where the pipeline was going to come in, they realized
So
that
no
there were
written objection?
no written objections. No.
And nobody's here against the project?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. I think Steve has a question of staff as well.
Yeah, I have a question, Mr. Blay, the fire marshal. Does the county fire department have in place plans and procedures in case of a catastrophic failure? In other words, we've just read in the news here down in Corpus Christi, something just blew up. If that were to happen here, do we have in place, some sort of plan we could pull out of the notebook and say, this is what we do?
Mr. Chair, Planning Commissioner Krenz, our emergency manager, Martin Vigil, he does have a response plan that includes pipeline partners. I'm assuming it's them. And federally, they are required to do an annual scenario-based operation where they simulate a catastrophic incident. So to answer your question, yes, we do have a response plan, not a mitigation plan, but a response plan.
Response plan. So in other words, our firefighters who, you know, are going to house fires and things like that, and they do a very, very good job at that. But this is an industrial kind of fire.
Yes.
Do they get some sort of training at some point along to do that sort of thing?
I believe the training is mostly about isolating the area and let the experts to arrive and control the situation.
So then let's turn the question over to the experts here. How do you respond then to that sort of thing?
So, Plan Commissioner, we actually have, New Mexico Gas actually has a safety plan, a specific safety plan for each project. And so we have a safety plan here for this project we're going to pass out, and I'll have Angela explain it more.
So in addition, we work with our first responders. So we have a tech training facility at New Mexico Gas. So twice a year, our first responders come to New Mexico Gas and we simulate a leak. So we have a pipeline that's got air in it, and we simulate, you know, a big, you know, damage in the pipeline. And so we work with them to be able to figure out if we were to have a catastrophic event, how to handle that situation. So the firefighters are aware of precautions to take, who to call, who to work with. It's laid out in the plan that we're presenting to you. But we do work with our first responders in a training environment.
Right. Well, you're not going to do it for real.
Hopefully not.
And Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Crins, obviously, you're not, if there's a full-blown fire at one of these pipes, you're not going to put that fire out. What you're going to do is you're going to shut off the gas supply, and then the fire puts itself out. So the fire marshal is exactly right. What you do is you contain the area, and we rely upon the first responders for that. You shut off the gas. Is the primary of a fire on a 20-inch pipeline. That's the primary method of treating it. So,
well, then you can see my earlier question about where are the valves and how far apart are they and how much gas is in the line.
You're exactly right, and that's why we focus so much on the remote ability to shut those off, control them, and so forth. You're exactly right.
And so with that much gas in the pipeline, unless there's an ignition source, and gas will only ignite at 4 to 14% gas, or LEL. So this much gas that's in the pipeline, should there be a leak, it's not going to explode, and it has to get down pretty minimal to even reach that explosive zone.
The safest place to be is next to the transmission leak.
Because there's not enough oxygen there.
You can't light it, it's too much pure gas.
Right,
Now,
okay.
a couple hundred yards away, when it gets to that LEL limit, that's where your ignitions occur, and that's where fire departments help with the cordon, and they understand that.
Smaller lines, that kind of thing. These transmission lines, it's a big leak, but typically now if there's an ignition source there, yeah, as you've seen throughout the nation. So yes.
Thank you.
Okay, before we take a vote over here, I'd like to just make a statement here. You guys need to get about 3 or 4 more Steve Larinagas working for you. we don't have enough of Steve Larinagas.
He's invaluable.
Okay.
I'll tell him you said that.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the commission?
Mr. Chair,
JJ.
I'd like to make a motion to approve case 1950-200 New Mexico Gas Company transmission line with staff conditions.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for your competence. It gives us a great deal of confidence.
Yeah, really.
Thank you very much for that comment.
Thank you, Commissioner. We look forward to a very successful project. It's going to be a lot of work this summer, and we appreciate the opportunity to come here tonight, so thank you.
That was one little question I had. You know, when we asked about the timeline, you said you're going before the PRC in August.
Yes.
But you said that you're starting the project in April.
Correct.
And finish in October.
And then finishing in October.
Well,
how does that work out?
We're building the line with permission from this commission and so forth. We're building the line. The way the PRC works is we have to do it and then go seek
how to pay for
repayment from them for that, and that's that prudency standard. So we're at risk until we get that approved by them. Now, it just has to be used and useful and so forth, so, but yeah, that, we're going forward with this permission tonight.
Yeah, and we appreciate that, because honestly, our start date obviously is driven by the conditional use permit and the process that we've been going through here in Santa Fe County. So, working with staff and others, we'll start construction when we get all the permits and everything in place.
Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you all. Thank you for coming. All right. Okay, petitions from the floor. Okay. Communication from commission members. Anything? None? Okay. Communications from the attorney? Okay.
Sounds good.
Matters from land use staff?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to welcome Commission Member Krentz to the Planning Commission, so.
Thank you. Okay.
And also, I just wanted to mention, if you haven't gotten me your disclosure statements or financial disclosure forms for 2020, if you can get those to me as soon as possible.
Okay. I'd also like to thank staff for that good report. I'll say you guys did a good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Next Planning Commission regular meeting is March 19, 2020. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Aye.
We're gone. We're done.
Thank you.
Thank you.